interesting what I did, as opposed to one of my other friends doing the same, who left the UK, went back home. We both looked for jobs and we chose different options. I chose a practice while he chose an industry of a family group of business in the accounting function. His pay was much higher than mine to begin with. I was very consciously choosing the practice because I needed to be having a very strong foundation, which I decided I would get from a practice.
What do you feel makes you different compared to another offshoring, outsourcing provider?
We hire only the best, and we would not deploy resources until we are convinced to the level that this is the best resource.
Gazi, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. So Gazi, I've had the pleasure of spending quite a few days with you in the last week. We are in Doha, Qatar, recording this, which is your current residence. And I wanted to get you on the podcast because from hearing your story, you have a phenomenally inspiring journey and story that I feel would be of benefit to many firm owners tuning in to listen to this. Certainly seeing the title that they have seen, going from your humble beginnings to where you are now, running the size of practice that you are running with the kind of clients that you are working with. So I thought it'd be good to come and get you on and hear your story. And we all have something we can learn from each other in terms of where we've come from, what we have done to get to where we have got to give that motivation to others. So, in terms of let's start off from the very beginning then. What led you to pursue a career in accounting? Let's start off there.
First of all, thank you, Reza, for having me. It's as much inspirational for myself to be speaking to you and to be sharing my story on this platform. So I got into accounting while I was in my high school, when I chose accounting to be my higher education, let's say. And it was a choice that I made consciously, and much by influence from my parents in the first place, because I was good at maths. I used to like maths. I used to do okay. And then accounting came out to be a very easygoing subject, which I could tackle well. Also by influence by one of my tutors in the school. He was a really good accounting tutor. So I guess the trainer has a role in my life to choose accounting in the first place. I remember I chose accounting as my O-level subject. Back then, when I was 15 years old, my father used to inspire me to become something very big, someone very big, someone out there. And the inspiration story goes like this. He used to come and preach me to dream big, to see big, to think of big future. And one fine day, he would print out stickers reading, "I am a chartered accountant," put it all around the room. And he would particularly tell me, wake up, stay in the room, look into this, visualize that you are a chartered accountant, without me knowing what it meant to be as a career. I was a teenager, so I was dreaming early on to become someone of that level and of that caliber.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, we hear of this a lot now in, the Western world in terms of podcasts, things like that. People talk about the power of manifestation and vision boards, and you hear all the big influencers talking about this kind of stuff. So it's fascinating in terms of, your father and the wisdom that he had of doing this a couple of decades ago, right? In terms of this manifestation stuff, which clearly worked, definitely worked for you. But give us an idea of where you grew up, because you grew up in a very different place to where most of us grew up. In the West, in the UK and US. So give us a little bit of a description of what is your childhood like. Where is this taking place? Obviously in Bangladesh. Whereabouts was it? In Dhaka? Was it a village? Talk us to a little about that.
Yeah, thank you. So I was born and raised in Dhaka, and it's the city center. I was raised in you could say, a middle class family, and I could see hardworking parents who used to make sure that we have a good living. Life used to be normal. I didn't expect or dream on regular days that I would end up being where I am today, or I would be going global at some stage or the other. But what used to happen is, since I was in Dhaka, Bangladesh is a country full of dreams. People dream, people envision, people end up fulfilling those dreams. And Bangladeshi people are visionary people, very optimistic, courageous, taking bold steps. I guess those attitudes or attributes played out on me as well in the society and in my decision-making process. I was particularly benefited by a family business that was going on, but it was solely run by my mother. She was the entrepreneur in the house, while my father was working as a full-time employee in RMG, which is also one of the very prominent industries of the country. But my mother used to run a cooking school and used to train women to be independent and self-sufficient through different means of making business through handicrafts, boutique, and so on. So all my life, I used to see, witness business happening, decisions being taken, and growth and frictions in the house. I used to be part of those conversations very early on, even so that I was one of the contributors in the business by writing out recipes or documents or certificates and things that I could do on the computer just to be a computer operator. And the very first employment certificate I got was from the very same institute, which was my mother's organization, about being a very good and skillful computer operator. And I was only 14 years old, and that played out well on me when I had to take serious decisions about my life later on.
Yeah. Okay, so entrepreneurism, I guess, is in your blood. You saw your mother kind of set up in the home, sewing, and then teaching others how to do that. And now, Bangladesh is regarded as the primary source of production for manufacturing of garments. All the big retailers like H&M, etc., have the garments produced there. So, okay, let's move on to. You did your accounting, GCSE, A-level, then what happens? How did you then take the next step to say, right, okay, now I've done A-levels, I want to pursue the Chartered Accountancy qualification? Where did your ACCA journey start?
This is interesting because this is where I actually started thinking global. We had various options. We could go for the local accountancy, we could go for the local cost management accountancy, and various others to go with. Well, I chose ACCA because at that time, ACCA was promoting globalization, a global qualification. The tuition providers were giving this tuition of the ACCA qualification. So when the time came that I had to choose a degree to pursue, I explored all the options. One of the things that came across my mind was the fast track. What ACCA allowed me, without having the university bachelor's or without pursuing and completing a bachelor's, you could do ACCA and the bachelor's side by side. It had a program affiliated with Oxford Brookes University. And that's what really intrigued me to save time. I think one of the things that always triggers my decision making is about achieve the most within the shortest period of time. And choosing ACCA, recognized global qualification, it had similar language skills that I needed, and the accounting fundamentals was strong with my A-levels. So I figured out that I would be able to pass and tackle this examination better.
Fantastic. Good. So you chose ACCA, you start your studies, you pass. Now, getting into the real world of work, what happens there? That's an interesting story in terms of how you land your first job and what you're doing in your first job before coming on to starting your firm. So yeah, talk to us about that, how you landed your first role in accounting.
Actually, the studying part was all fun and jolly because I went on to UK to finish off ACCA.
Okay.
And I was one of the privileged amongst my batch to be able to decide and pursue ACCA with Kaplan Financial. And I felt accomplished. I felt like I had been trained well enough and I was ready for the real world. After striking off towards my final exams, I headed back home from the UK only to realize that I have scratched nothing and I'm not practically employable or valuable to the employers, and the skills that are required or professional knowledge that I have gained is not valued from day one. And then it struck me that I have to gain the knowledge all over again, or I have to be relevant to the employers of the country. That was a very big strike or shock to begin with. So I went to the Big Four, I went to other accounting practices. Interesting what I did, as opposed to one of my other friends doing the same, who left the UK, went back home. He was an affiliate by them. I had one exam remaining. We both looked for jobs and we chose different options. I chose a practice while he chose an industry of a family group of business in the accounting function. And his pay was much higher than mine to begin with. Mm-hmm. While he chose that, I was very consciously choosing the practice because I needed to be having a very strong and foundation, which I decided I would get from a practice. Working in consulting, assurance, working with multiple clients per se, instead of going into a particular industry or accounting function, I preferred accounting practice as my beginning. It was quite difficult choice and whereabouts, but I landed my first job in Baker Tilly as affiliated firm in Bangladesh, which is known as Aknabin. And that's where my journey began.
And this is where your first paycheck, which was for how much? Remind us.
So it was not even a paycheck. Yeah, it was like a stipend that the trainees were entitled to, was 2,000 taka at the time, would be 80 pounds.
A month. Wow. So that's a typical 40-hour week?
That's a 5-day week.
5-day week, 40 hours a week. So you're talking 160 hours a month for 80 pounds. So if my math is correct, that's 50 pence an hour.
That's what it was.
Yeah. Amazing. Fantastic. Okay, so you start with Baker Tilly, training contract. It is what it is, but you're getting the experience. So how long did you stay there before you decided to move on?
So what I valued was the experience that I'm going to gain from there. And the payoff was just okay for me. I knew what I was going to gain from that experience, from that tenure. So I worked around 2.5 years in the assurance and consulting department. And I was continuously, mindfully nurturing my skills, building relationships, understanding industries, working overtime beyond that 160 hours, knowing the knowledge hub or studying the different compliances and whatnot, because I was just hungry for growth. And that's what I was attached to the firm. And I could see being associated with an accounting practice, the industry would value you more. They would ask you in your interviews, so where have you trained? Where have you worked for? And when you would introduce yourself, I have worked for the firm and I've been with the training contract, the value or the starting in the industry would be credible.
So was that your dream? So take us back to the year. And was that your dream to basically do a few years hard graft for next to nothing at a prestigious top 5, top 10 firm? The dream was to get a good job in industry. Is that what was your thinking at the time? Or did you always have dreams to have your own practice business at that time? What year are we talking, by the way?
I entered the firm in 2014.
Okay.
And I exited end of 2016. And by the time I was in practice, my dream was, because in the practice I was involved from the proposal to the billing and collecting the bills even. And I used to get to that level of supervising the work. And that really got me into occasionally dreaming about how could a practice owner add value? How does a practice owner look like? What does practice owners think when they would submit a proposal? What they would bid for? Where would they source those tenders? And how I would get exposed to that bit. Besides the technical report writing, doing the field work bit. And those were the extra hours really that helped me. So I would work very closely with the director, senior manager, partner to some point. And that would build my strategic sort of vision. But I wasn't really decided that I would end up having my own practice by X years. I would have the dream to have a credible industry experience and get a credible job. At the point in time, everyone was looking for a job in a multinational corporation in Bangladesh, which would pay you well, You would have good work-life balance. You would have a good pay scale. You would have nice working environment. And that's what, like every other future accountants, I was dreaming for.
So really the world view of an accountant in Bangladesh is kind of the pinnacle is getting a good job in industry for good pay, good lifestyle, and that's it. That's kind of the vision that everyone has because they don't know anything else. Right. Okay. So what happens next? You've done that for 2.5 years. What's your next move? Do you apply for that dream job in industry?
Actually, I was one of those candidates who never applied for jobs. Instead, I was going out, making connections, adding value, and really talking to people, making the connections. While I was in practice, serving the clients, I would go into the field work, understand the business, try to keep those connections working for me. And yeah, this came about that there's an opening in an internal audit role in a not-for-profit. I was told no by my line manager, by my friends. This is not for profit. This is not the typical industry you go for. This is internal audit, not the best industry that you would scale yourself. Go for a MNC, go for a role, and go for ambition of a CFO. So what I did the opposite, and I was determined on that day, I will not ambition to become a CFO. Rather, I will build a career in internal audit and prove everybody wrong. And my young version of myself was very ambitious that I would end up making something good out of it. And then the moment I entered internal audit, it was all new, it was all different, internal audit standards, and the practice went on. So the company that I joined was actually a not-for-profit, but it also had many other verticals and conglomerate group, which were social enterprises and business making, like seed enterprise, manufacturing, retail, microfinance, and so on. And it's quite big, reputed company. And what it was, again, it gave me a playing field to grow. And then I joined as a manager, but then I soon was differentiated in my peers. I got my first promotion and I was being recognized within. I was enjoying my role in internal audit. And soon enough, I wanted to be credible again. So I went on to pursue the next qualification in specializing in internal audit because I saw an opportunity and also a need for me to add value and be relevant. And that's what I tried to accomplish at that time. I went on for a relevant qualification in internal audit. And by the time I qualified, I was again in the country. By that time, there were, and I'm speaking of certified internal auditor qualification, I was within the 8 or 9 qualified CIAs back then, and it was fairly untapped and not, as I said, people were not really finding internal audit as a credible choice, but it turned out good for me. So that was my next employment.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly not most people's cup of tea, but there is an upside to that in terms of the supply and demand. There is not many people. So if you enjoy it and it's your passion, then you can get recognized pretty quickly. And you certainly did that. So how did that then lead you to your next role, which involved moving continents, right?
Yes, my next role was my dream role. And it's one of those roles that I hadn't even planned for, or I haven't been applying for even. So I was pretty much headhunted through, that's what the usual, now I know the Qatari companies are involved in. They would headhunt talents across the globe as they like. And we've got mixed nationalities here across the country. So similar to that, I was reached out for this role in internal audit, and it was a manager role leading the function, which I interviewed for. And within 5 months, I think it was very quick. It's from the interview to the immigration, to the visas, to the traveling. And next, I landed in Qatar.
So just talk us through the backstory in terms of, okay, you say you're headhunted, but that doesn't happen out of nowhere, right? How did they come across you? I mean, there's so many others in Bangladesh that could have chosen. Why you? What happened in particular? Where did you appear that you suddenly got on the radar of Ali bin Ali, right? One of the big conglomerates here based in Qatar. How did they find Gazi Jishan of Dhaka?
Yeah. So interesting is I was always hungry for more. And while I was in Dhaka, I was always involved with the IIAs, voluntary and other organizing activities. So what happened was I was featured for my contribution being a young CIA, being a young emerging leader. The IIA Global USA, the global headquarters, they usually recognize 30 members around the globe who fulfills those criteria that they put as an emerging leader. So the year 2018, I was reached out by the IIA Global, and then that went through an assessment, and there were questionnaires that I was very excited, and I felt to be on the global arena, and I just took that opportunity to showcase myself. This feature landed into the hands of my current the employer that I worked for, Ali bin Ali, who was regularly following and looking for talents. So they ended up seeing my feature, which showcased my activities so far, my achievements, and what I potentially am ambitioning to do, how we impacted the organization using technology in internal audit and collaboration and everything that CIAs are promoting. So that was sort of the trigger of my...
How did that feel when out of the blue you're doing your thing? Suddenly, was it a call? Was it an email?
It was a call. It was a call from an HR lady. And then the first thing that I was in a meeting or just going for a meeting, and then I received a call in Dhaka, and I was very calm. It was normal for me at that time because I remember something goes down to my values, that the first question I asked back to the lady was, am I able to sponsor or travel with my family? Because by the time I realized that, I thought a few steps ahead. Probably the potential employer wouldn't realize that I have a family with 2 children already, being young and growing audit manager. So I wanted to give that information in clarity, and I just wanted to know that before I progress. So I asked this question and I got the response, yes, this role accommodates family benefits, means can sponsor and so on. And then I said, I'm okay. I would be happy to interview.
Amazing. So this is 2018, so not very long ago. You move yourself, your family from Bangladesh to Qatar.
Yeah.
And you start your journey in internal audit, working for Ali bin Ali. Tell us, okay, so now you're working in this job. Now, the start of your next business. This is kind of the crux of today's interview. How did that start? Qormotho, as it were.
Actually, Qormotho started while I was in
Dhaka.
While I was in Dhaka.
Okay.
So my first ever project came as an opportunity. It came from a contact in the UK who reached out to my current partner, that we have some job and for a back office of an accounting practice based in London.
At that time, it's just a friend.
It's just
you've got a friend. Your friend gets an email from an accountancy practice to say, gets a call. We want you to do a set of accounts for us. He's not an accountant.
He's not an accountant.
So he reaches out to you.
He reaches out to me. But this friend, by the way, a backstory of that was I already had started doing local outsourcing or local accounting services
for
local Bangladeshi enterprises. Okay. So I was beyond my job. I used to manage accounting, inventories, and I used to do AP, doing some Excel-based accounting services for a handful of clients. One of my clients was this friend of mine.
Okay.
Who then told me, I have a UK accounting job. You are an accountant. Would you want to take on that? But he was a businessman, a smart one. He didn't just send me or connect me.
Yeah.
He stayed on and he said, I will be your partner in this.
Yeah.
And it made sense. I was the technical person. He was the introduction point of contact. And then we had our first call somewhere in August 2018.
Okay. So this is all new to you, right? Because you're not familiar with UK statutory practice, accounting, and this job comes to you. And your first instinct, even though you've never done it before, is fine, I'll do it.
What was new was the technology, but the technical bit, while I was in the UK, I had a flavor of it while I was in practice for a brief stint of 4 months to work
you did
before. I didn't,
experience or something.
not London. I did work for an accounting practice, like an apprenticeship,
Right.
but it was just not long enough for me to take home. And then there was a gap of about 6 years now.
Yeah.
And then all that knowledge, connection, relevance, the everything was new, yes, in that aspect. And what was new was the technology, how cloud-based softwares are really working. I haven't tried any freelancing before. The hours needed to build a freelancing profile and all of that, I just knew it, but I never tried on that. So once it came along, it just connected, and we started off live with doing year-end accounts for this accounting practice.
Okay. So one job comes, you do a good job, and then more start coming.
Yeah, it just kept on coming because I was more like, I soon, within the second month, within the first set of accounts that I handed in, I was looked at like a finance analyst on ground. So I was treated like a team member, internal team member working offshore.
For the accounting firm.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. So where does that go to next? So it's just you. Your business partner has just made the introduction. How does that snowball then? This is what, 2018 still?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually did not start myself. So what I did was, I knew I was employed and I'm not going to be able to handle the task. And without even having a commitment or growth or an entity shape as it is, I just decided that whatever income or the work comes in, I put it up in my, because I was teaching accounting, I put this up to my classroom and asked for someone who would like to work with me for a foreign outsourcing project-based job. And I had someone signed up with me from day one. He was my first employee, and we started off with him the very same day I trained or handed in or understood zero accounting software. Him and myself had started off the same journey. Him being available, he's a student full-time. I'm an employed person, but I need this to be successful. I don't need any friction, communication gap, bottlenecks, call it. I didn't want anybody waiting for me. I had shared the access amongst us two. He was a near to qualified member at that time, and he was okay. And to fast track, today he is still with us.
Still fantastic. So this is incredible in terms of your bravery and your sign of a true entrepreneur, that immediately you saw that actually I don't want to be able to be doing this stuff. And it seems as if you had a feeling that this could scale. And so even before you've got more than one client, you engage someone to do the work for you and train them up at the same time. So this is still whilst you're in Bangladesh, right? Even before you moved to Doha.
Yes.
Okay. So how does that then snowball? So you're getting lots of work from this accounting firm, and then you quickly, you start to hire more and more people to help you with the work. So this is 2018, you're one person. How does that snowball? What does that look like in terms of recruitment of team members from 2018 onwards?
So 2018 onwards, the work was just snowballing, as you said. So it was coming down on us from 3 accounts, 5 set of accounts to more work and
Just
more
the
work.
same accounting firm.
Same accounting firm, because it was working in a particular sector of tech startups, which was also good for the portfolio, as we understood. And we were a good trusted member. We were the sole provider. And since the trust was built, the technology was trusted, passed on. That time difference didn't have any challenges. It was their first outsourcing experience as well. With that partnership, we ended up 2018 with 3 staff members and 2 of us. While I was still hands-on, I used to still attend meetings, sacrifice my Eid holidays, overtime working, supporting my team member, giving him courage wherever pitfalls happened. And I used to be hands-on and just be where I used to sign up and check emails and check every correspondence with the client, even to the level that we were also interacting with the clients beyond the finance analyst, myself with a signature of finance analyst within that company.
Because you still have your full-time job. So you do your full-time job, you go home, and then you have another job.
Yes, I have. And then because of the time difference, the evening time of Bangladesh is the morning for, it's a plus 6 hours most of the year, and then 5 hours some days. So it would be an evening sort of job. And many of the job was like project-based. You hand it in within the particular date. It wouldn't matter whether you are starting in late or you are. So it was flexible and good rapport. And we ended 2018 with 3 staff members. And by the time mid 2018, we had 5 bookkeepers and accountants full-time working for us. Then 2019, I got job offer in Qatar. In September, I migrated out of the country, but nearly 1 year, we actually celebrated 1 year in August 2019, and we had a celebration event, and even we were so small, it was a 350 square feet space that my father had in the ground floor of our apartment. So it's actually the same space my mother used to do business in. And that's the same space we converted it into an accounting firm practice setting. That's the same space I taught accounting as well. So that space has lots of memories for us. And then that was the starting. 1 year passed by. We sort of had a gathering where I invited around 50 guests, friends, well-wishers, ex-employers, that we are celebrating 1 year of this partnership. And then...
But this is still with 5 people, or you had...
It's 5.
Just 5 of you?
Just 5 of us.
And you have this big celebration.
We are celebrating a big cake, and it was like, I have photos of, I was younger, and then by the time I was actually leaving the country, there was mixed feeling. One side of me was saying, I have to go to the country, I need to settle my career, I need to focus on being successful in that role, while the other side was so passionate about this role and this success that we have built, not to lose this. So I had extensive discussions, and with full confidence and faith, I left everything that my team members can run without me. Yeah, I just didn't express my panic or my conscious self. What I did was I just kept on giving them the hope and confidence that I'm always available. I would be. And actually, that's what I did. Even though I moved out of the country, I was always making myself available for critical times. And those small conversations along the months, check-ins, would really help them give confidence that, yeah, I am available. So that sort of safety net, or that sort of remote connectivity, kept us going.
Okay, so let's kind of speed through. How do you get from 5 people in 2019 to a team of over 50, right, at the moment?
Yes.
Going from nothing to a £500,000 business. How did that snowball? So you're in Qatar, you got 5 people. Talk us through quickly how 2020, 2021, 2022. Where did all these clients like Huel and Fussy and Pure and Little Moons and Hotel Chocolat, where does that all come from?
So 2018, 5 people. 2018 was 3. 2019, we ended with around 7 people.
Yeah.
2020 COVID was a year of diversification. I probably will touch base, come back later on this. But 2020 was complete close down and rebirth of the entire business.
Yeah. So this is interesting, because I remember you telling me that the accounting firm you're working with, so you still only have one real client, right? You've got this one UK accounting firm that's engaged you.
Yes.
They panic. COVID comes, they panic. They have UK people. They're also using you. Everyone in the UK panicked at that time. They wanted to retain their existing UK team and use them more. So what did they say to you?
It was a call from the practice owner telling me that we are going to cancel the contract. And I was sitting in my Doha office getting this email or a phone call. I was
How much was that worth at the time?
I think it was not more than, it was actually less than what I was earning myself in Doha, Qatar. I mean, as a monthly salary even.
Yeah.
So,
but it was supporting the 7 team members, right?
7, yeah.
7 team members are supporting because cost of living, wages, etc. are much lower in Bangladesh.
Yes. We were...
A few thousand a month, would you say?
Yeah, it would be between 5 to 7,000.
5 to 7,000 a month pounds that you were earning, and that contract suddenly stops.
Yes.
Zero.
Wow. And we're complete zero. Month of April 2020, we had to hand in with compensation termination letters to all the staff members, and I was doing it remotely. While one of the decisions we took was we will not actually terminate or close down the office. We had all our hopes, and while the panic was, we were navigating panic ourselves. We were just different locations. My partner back in Dhaka, I'm in Doha. But we were discussing, let's keep the hopes high. You never know, opportunities come. Keeping that door open, I guess, was something very rewarding. Because before the month closes, towards the end of the week, I still look back at those emails, if I do, I would get an email from a finance manager who moved out of that practice somewhere a few months back to become a head of finance into a staffing and a hospital and healthcare industry. She reaches out to us because they are struggling with manpower. And she remembers they worked with us in finance outsourcing. She reaches out for finance. By the time we already were working with her for finance outsourcing. So we were 2 clients effectively.
Okay.
The big client of that brand cut off, but she was our client already.
Okay.
But she reaches out to ask us, could we do other non-accounting services such as customer support and virtual administration.
Amazing.
That's where the diversification started.
So the essentially this is the offshoring model now. So basically they just need people to provide admin, back office support during the time of COVID, because now everyone is familiar with remote working. So, Florence reach out to you and they get people. So this is your break. This is what, April 2020?
Absolutely. April, May, we set it up, 5-member team. So 5 goes, 5 comes in.
Okay. So those actually terminated. They didn't come back. It's new people came back.
Actually, what I did, I first prioritized to these 5 accounting guys. I told them, guys, I know it's non-relevant to you. However, why don't you come back and just do this for the time being? Everything around Dhaka was also closed off and around the world. So 2 or 1 of them chose to do it. The rest said, no, I will pursue something in accounting. So we just referred them to different companies as they were. So we hired new set of people who were English proficient, coming from a marketing or HR background, non-accounting. And we set up a team. And I was bold enough to face that client onboarding as well, having no set of experience in customer support. I was okay to say to the head of customer success, and she was a wonderful and supportive person herself. She said, we'll do all the training. We just need the resources. Just as you said, offshoring, they manage the staff. I just get the resources, the attributes that they look for, and the time zone. The systems are given by the client. The processes are detailed by them. All I need to make sure is the administration is running.
Yeah. So basically it's a margin play for you, right? It's a margin business. You've got the contact with the UK client. You can access talent from Bangladesh at a much lower rate. In those days, how did you come up with your pricing? So they say to you, we need 2 or 3 people. And there's, Gazi, how much? What do you say?
We would actually base our prices based on what we were charging or we set from the accounting practice. So we were not really, I was fully employed and I had very little time to give. So what it was as it were, we were happy with the margins that were coming in. We did have a margin sort of in our minds that yes, as a GP, we would the best target would be about, and don't be surprised, up to 70% would be a margin as a gross profit. And then rest of it would then add up to another 20-30%. But I can't remember that I'm very tracking such reports of, margins and such. I used to consider KPIs to be more relevant to what the client would value rather than just doing some internal financial KPI, because we were so small and so optimistic and just wanted to be in the opportunity zone, and we had nothing to lose per se. Yeah.
Okay. So how does your next, because you go down to 0 in April 2020, or virtually 0, it's not really 0 to 500,000 in 10 years. It's actually 5 years, because you go up and you go down to 0 and then you start off again. Within 5 years, you've grown very fast. So how do the other clients come along now? So you've got this one, Florence, the accounting firm is down to hardly anything. How do the rest come along? And how do you pivot then into doing the full finance function, VFO type work?
So effectively, we were referred from one client to the other to the other, or one client was referring us to multiple contacts.
Most accountants work through referrals, but I think you're quite fortunate to be in a space where your client is the finance manager, the finance director of some exciting tech startup companies. So you were working with an accountancy practice who niched into tech startups.
Yes.
One of their people joined a tech startup, Florence, in the care sector. Yes. Then Florence introduces you to, which one came next?
The next was an Ireland-based healthcare company, which was the same business model of Florence.
Okay.
And that was going on at that time, parallelly with 2020, around the COVID period, we were doing that. Doesn't stay with us longer than 6 months, I guess. And it had been a couple or 3 clients for 2 years.
Okay.
Straight 2 years. So we were hanging on to one client plus one or two more clients. Like the next game was Grantify. It's one of those, they used to process government grants.
Right. So that's after 2021. It's still pretty much stagnant. Still
three clients.
So when does the
last
change?
year, 2024.
Only 2024.
2024.
Wow. So 2024, everything explodes.
2024, we explode.
Who comes first?
By the end of 2023, we were around 30 members.
30
members.
So just serving the 2-3 clients.
The 3 clients, 4 clients. And then by 2024 is the big names that came with us. The first one who came was Huel. The finance director at that time was referred by a CFO network for looking for an outsourced partner for her finance department. And we started off with one AP accountant or a project, as you like. And then within February till August, all these names piles up within the 5 or 6 months. We go with Pure, then comes Little Moons, and
they're all referring each other. Is it Pure, Little Moons, and then Hotel Chocolat.
Hotel Chocolat at the same time. Fussy comes just this quarter. This is what we celebrated this.
So your boom year was 2025, or that's
2024.
Period. 24.
Yeah.
In terms of your income wise, what were you at in 2023? Around what, 20K a month?
Yes.
That's it?
Yes.
20K a month, and that virtually doubles then within a space of 12
absolutely.
months.
It picks up, and exactly it goes around 89 to 90% growth. And from December to December 2020. And the best part about it is it's all retaining and regular clients. You could predict they are with us, and you could foresee one FTE full-time equivalent. Then it's only clients are extending within the project. So if they start with 1, they go for 3. They started with part-time. Within 3 months, they would hire a full-timer because the work was just beneficial and adding value to their function.
Yeah. Because this is where, now lots of companies are doing it. And there's so many outsourcers, offshorers out there. You're fortunate you land one good client, and now you've got a handful of really good clients in that tech space that enables you to service them and to build this great business that you have. What do you feel makes you different compared to another offshoring, outsourcing provider?
I think one fair bit plays in our part would be the client services. The client services function is not a separate function. It's the same people who are trained to do the technical job and also make sure the client services are delivered. So one particular thing that plays well is the cost, the pricing. That's always an advantage. And that's how we have always tried to promote and sell through. But once someone would get on board, they would start to see the value of having the person or having the offshore remote employee. But the accounting, the technical stuff that the team plays are very, very advanced as well, because we hire only the best. We take our time, and we would not deploy resources until we are convinced to the level best that this is the best resource.
Yeah.
Our hiring process has been very stringent, very particular, very methodical. The needed relevant skills. So I think the outsource providers would obviously look for the relevant same skill sets. We have done that very methodically. So the clients would value that. The clients would value the hard workingness. We are devoted, and the staff members who would come feel passionate about the problems the client faces. And they would not just hand in a job, hand in a work. They would go on to ask for more, ask relevant questions. And that's what the FDs, the finance CFOs, they really admire of our staff members. And it just goes on a relationship. They just want to continue with the staff member, and the likability is there.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, that is something that unfortunately is quite lacking in the UK and the Western world, this work ethic. And that's why outsourcing and offshoring is becoming very popular, because the work ethic of people in the East is just far superior than people in the West. Is just a fact. So, this is happening, and you can clearly see it. You are becoming more and more in demand, and they want more resources because they can see they're doing good work, they're as qualified, technically competent, and they have that work ethic, which unfortunately is quite hard to find in the UK. So at this point, 2024, you are still employed full-time. You still have your full-time job here in Qatar, working for Ali bin Ali. You're up to 50 team members at this time. All these clients, nearly £500,000 business. Before we talk about when you leave, because this is when you come across my stuff, right? So how on earth do you connect with me, my stuff? And where did that come from? And where has that led you?
So I came across your stuff, I would say just when I needed to. Just when I needed. So I was up to the point that I would make the decision, the call that I would be fully self-employed, focused on the business. Now, this is where I have very limited knowledge about how to run and grow the business or really make it as advanced as it needs to be to keep up with the client services and the reputation that we have earned. I don't want to lose it. I just want to build on it. So I came across you on LinkedIn and I saw your content. I was reading the content that you were sharing, especially the pricing, the internal process. And I knew from myself that the company that we have lacks a lot of process, lacks our pricing model in its own, and had just deficiencies everywhere you think of it. So the decision I took.
The book, right? You bought my book because I remember we shipped out somebody from Qatar. What is the book? We ship it out.
Yes, yeah. I was hooked into getting more, and as I said, the one story of my life, I just like shortcuts. So I wanted to be there in the shortest possible time, successful, and I needed to be successful. So one thing in my mind was I cannot be unsuccessful doing this when I had to move out from full-time employment. And I bought your book. And one thing I did was I read through the book within the shortest possible time, given that I was busy, everything that was happening around me.
And you're not a reader, right?
I'm not a reader.
You've never read a book?
I haven't read a book since I was reading some adventure books back in the day and some books that I would just skim through, but I'm not a reader. And
so
then,
this one you picked up and you read cover to cover?
Cover to cover. And then I was precisely reading. I was reading at everywhere. And that book stays with me wherever I go. It's on my desk. And what I was reading the book as was, I was reading the book as if I would be really taking it on, because I was in the journey and I was in the correct time to implement things. So, and I am the decision maker of the company. So I had all the necessary forces to work towards me.
So since reading, then you joined the pack?
I was not convinced of the pack at first. Okay. I thought reading the book would be enough. I really thought that reading the book would give me content, and it had reference, and you had given away as it may be the processes and what softwares and everything else. You had given away a lot of it on the aspect of convincing that how, and I went away to go on implement it on my own for a month. But soon enough, I was convinced and I had a call with you. And what convinced me most was that there were resources available, like the profile, the content, the pricing, the Excel files that may be just useful for replicate in my practice. And that's what intrigued me.
So you go through the training, you have the content, the resources. What are some of the things that you start to implement, and what kind of results did you see?
So this was January 2025. And it was the right time of looking at pricing. So I started off there. As you preach, I went into my contracts and I had fairly easy targets of my clients who we haven't repriced. While the extension of the job would look like this, we started off doing just invoicing. And now I figured out, talking to the team, that we close their month ends and we would review financials and we would end up closing the year end and facing the audit for the external audit and so on. So the work extension was extensive. We were almost relieving the finance manager role. And we do, we continue to do, because the knowledge retained with us, the process, the business models are all familiar, and more delegation happened. So I repriced as my first and opened the subject with a couple of clients and send them that we need to reprice it. And that's one of the in process. And I pretty much touched all the pillars on the process, internal process, I subscribed to everything. I did my Calendly, I optimized my LinkedIn profile, and I had everything going live because by the time I really had it planned that I'm going to exit and I'm going to relaunch myself into the world with this new marketing approach, then I've got Loom video subscription, I've got Notion to myself, I've got a CRM now. So I pretty much dived into the process element, very hungry and still navigating which one's very useful, and I'm pushing it to the team. And the positioning bit is through my LinkedIn as my platform. I'm yet to explore other platform. It's too much for me right now, but I have chosen LinkedIn to be my and I've chosen my niche, and I've got my marketing going on there.
So essentially your January 25 was that when you left? You kind of had the confidence, you read the book, you thought, okay, now it's possible. I've got a blueprint. I've got support now in the pack of resources and someone, to get the shortcut, like you mentioned. That gave you the impetus to then hand in your notice. When did that exactly happen?
I gave in the notice in October.
October 24.
And then January, I already had served my notice. I was already relieved, and I start a fresh new year.
Yeah.
And I've already read the book by then.
Fantastic. Yeah, you've already, because you've got the blueprint and you're hungry, you know what to do. And so we are now having this conversation in April 25. What does the firm look like at the moment in terms of numbers and revenue? You're around the 500,000 going mark, 44K a month-ish, 45K a month, and over 50 team members.
So we hit 50 team members in September.
Yeah.
So we are 55 now, and we are growing. The finance team is just growing because the needs and the demands are just out there. We had few inquiry calls this first quarter of 25, which was my first quarter as a real full-time owner of a firm, as you like it, and to have inquiries from just 3 or 4, and it was also encouraging, and I just want to continue. And we signed up Fussy just early April, early March.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and we've been having these conversations, and I was blown away when you started to reel off some of the clients that you had, and I was amazed that you're not using it in your marketing. But hopefully, as this goes live, your LinkedIn banner will show all the trusted brands that you work with, because that's phenomenal. And people take shortcuts in marketing and they look at social proof. And when they see that you're working with some household names like Pure and Huel and Fussy and all these guys, then that gives them comfort that if they're good enough for them, they're good enough for us. So, what would you say are some of the biggest learnings you've had in the stuff that you have seen and learned in the conversations we've had, particularly when it comes to winning new clients?
One learning I would say would be the niching of your profile. And the more I hear and the more I reflect on from the book or one of the podcasts or anywhere, or even hearing the other pack members talk about it and sharing their success stories or not, I am hooked into that belief that this is somehow the way. I'll give you my experience and my example. Over the years, I have been in internal audit, and I was just so specialized and outspoken and a big promoter of the profession that I sort of turned this around to all the connections. Everyone starts to admire internal audit to be like my story started in Bangladesh. Don't go in internal audit. Nobody likes it. I remember my Kaplan tutor, Alison, she told us that internal audit are the poor guys. So it was always looked down on too. However, when I started it, and by the time I did it myself for 5-7 years, I had taken this to a level that I am a specialist in this area. Everyone would look up to me for advice, counsel, or even jobs I didn't really need to look for. So specialization speaks on itself. If your profile is speaking on a subject matter, and that's how I built a big connection across the globe on the specialization of risk, internal audit, and governance. And I've got 7,000 plus contacts, and I've got connections with global people on this field who are masters of their trade and or who are the visionary leaders and or who are the students and future leaders of internal audit. So I have come to the point that yes, this is one of the game changers that would bring results.
Absolutely.
In winning new clients where you can showcase your specialization.
100%. Yeah. It's all about becoming that credible expert so that people seek you out to want to work with you. So what next as we wrap up? What does the future hold for you? What is the next stage of growth for Gazi and Qormotho? You've got to 500,000. Is there a plan to get to 7 figures business, to scale even more? What does the future hold?
Well, we just got started. Although it's been a very rewarding experience, and we have got all the credible clients working for us and working with us, and we just want to capitalize on this value that we have earned, and simply put, the value of as you put it, the value of the top line or the profit doesn't really encourage me. I rarely look at the invoicing or get involved in the billing cycle of it. What triggers me is always the work or reputation or getting credibility across the work. So I would rather, even regardless of what the value or the client is paying, if a work comes, I would consider it to be a work. So I just want to keep on working. If I'm in the right direction, the business grows, personal growth, the learning, going global would all work out, I guess. As we hold today, we have offices in 3 countries, clients in Australia, Canada, and the UK, mainly in the UK, but we still have growth of potentials as the model supports us for any part of the world.
Yeah, fantastic. It's been an amazing achievement. Hats off to you for what you've done, and may your success continue.
Thank you so much.
What would you say as a final comment to an accounting firm owner listening to this, thinking, should they get involved in the pack? Is it beneficial to them? What would you say to them?
I think it's straightforward, beneficial to have that community. The way that I have benefited particularly is, how do you do the marketing? How do you position your firm? How do you sell, get new clients or new inquiries? As I've worked in big or top 10 practice, Baker Tilly, let's say, at that time, inquiries, or the big 4, let's say, inquiries doesn't come through advertisement or marketing or anything like that. So inquiries would come through different channels. So we really don't learn that in our profession. So building the brand, building the practice or taking it to the next level, and being relevant to our clients is what PAC enables every member to be.
Gazi, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story, and may your success continue.
Thank you, Reza, for having me. It's been a pleasure myself.